All right. And we're up. And it's Monday. Monday. Hope everybody is having a happy Monday, just like the band, right? Music Monday. See what we did there? Yeah. Brilliant. Love it. What's up, Dan? How are you? Good to see you. Happy Monday. What's up, Anthony? Everybody's yoing today. Yo. Frederick broke the chain. He said, hey. Susan, also a hey person. We got hey, we got yo. Now we got a good morning. Karen went the traditional route. Wished a good morning. Good morning, Karen. Hey, Susan. Hey, Frederick. Yo, Misanthropic. Yo, Anthony. Yo, Dan. Hi. Now we got everybody's mixing it up. Look at that. Hi, Ron and friends. Long time no see. Hello, Susan. Mike says hubba. Everybody is unique. Dominic says what up. All kinds of different greetings. I'm proud of y'all. Good afternoon. I'm high. David, welcome. Welcome to your first live stream. Once we get 30 people in here, the show officially begins. And right now we're just greeting everybody. Rainy days and Mondays never get me down. What's up, Keen? Hola. Nobody said howdy yet. So I will. I will be the first. Woot woot from Mega Monster Man. Mic drop. Somebody could enter with that. Invictus, first time watching. Awesome. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron. We will begin here shortly. We let people come in. You guys have sent a lot of cool stuff tonight. Wow, I'm out of it. It's morning for me, actually. Unfortunately, the episode's going to be a little shorter today because I have an early call time at the studio. But hey, says Tim. Hi, says Edwin. And we are over 30. Awesome. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. It is Music Monday. And you know what that means. We talk a little bit of music. We have some music-related stories, which is really cool. First of all, we have some listening recommendations today, so we'll do that first, since it is, in fact, Music Monday. Shauna recommends a song by the band Apogee Sound Club. The song is called Illusion of Modern Living / The Wall. Not familiar with this group at all. Never heard of them. But I'm going to check it out. She tweeted the song. I'm going to check it out. Edwin recommends a band. I've heard this name, but I'm not familiar with this band either. The Archives, Home is Where the Hatred Is. That's by a band called The Archives. So check that out. That's Apogee Sound Club and The Archives. I'm not familiar with either group. And those songs, Illusion of Modern Living / The Wall by Apogee Sound Club and Home is Where the Hatred Is by The Archives. Check those recommendations out. Also, a little more of a mainstream recommendation here. Mini Ninja Love recommends Fall in Line by Christina Aguilera. I know Christina Aguilera. I don't know. I'm sure I've heard that song before, but it's not ringing a bell off the top of my head. But I'm sure I've heard it like in the gym or somewhere, out at a bar. So anyway, here's my song recommendation for the day. We do a song recommendation every day. My recommendation today is the song Radio by Elvis Costello. Why is that your song, Ron? That's my song because we have a story today about media consolidation over from Free Press. So that's why Radio is my song choice, because that song is actually about kind of media consolidation. It's kind of about calling out the broadcasting industry and how it's kind of homogenized and they kind of tell you what to listen to. And Elvis Costello sees the kind of playful hypocrisy in that because he calls himself out. He goes, I want to bite the hand that feeds me. I want to bite that hand so badly. Constantine is quoting the lyrics. Beautiful. And he recognizes the fact that he wants to get played on the radio. He wants this song to get played on the radio, because keep in mind, this was pre-internet. This was even pre-MTV, the song Radio. So the radio was still the big game in town as far as getting your music out there. So you needed the radio. Elvis Costello knew that, but he was still kind of calling out the kind of the kind of linear nature of it all, right? So that's a great tune, Radio by Elvis Costello, and we have a media consolidation story later today. But here is something fun. We got two music stories, so we'll go to both those first. And you know, one of the things that we say a lot on this show, or one of the things that I've said before, is that Bernie's the punk, not Beto. I've said that many times. I still say that because it's true. Here's some more evidence supporting that. Boom! That time Bernie Sanders interviewed some punk rock kids in a mall. You guys have probably seen this video already, but back in the 80s, Bernie Sanders had a public access TV show, which is hilarious. Bernie Sanders had his own TV program from 1986 to 1988. This is from the article from Reason.com. Back when the socialist senator was mayor of Burlington, Vermont, the show was called Bernie Speaks. It aired on public access TV, and Politico just had the full run digitized. So, you know, this was back in the pre-internet days. Bernie was mayor, and he decided, I need to reach the people. I got to do a public access show. And what he would do was he would go around to different places and kind of do man-on-the-street type segments. This particular segment that's getting a lot of coverage and people are talking about music blogs and so forth is when he was walking around the Burlington Mall and he interviewed these high school punk rockers. And he talked to them about why they felt the way they did, why they were dressed the way they did, what statement they were making. And it was a fun interview to watch. So let's go back to the way the article talks about it. So this person in Politico watched them all. The production values, this person from Politico, Holly Oderbine, here's what she says about it. The production values are so low that they're sometimes hard to hear and see, which makes them feel more valuable, like an archive of lost secrets. So the show's topics, she reports, include Plato, Ronald Reagan, Jesse Jackson's 1988 presidential campaign, the immorality of the war in Nicaragua, the stupid property tax, the effects of the looming nuclear apocalypse on children, Burlington's waterfront, Burlington's trash dump, Burlington's snowplow operation, the incredible increase in crime, the close-fisted state legislator, the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer, and the reasons that punk rockers wear black. So this particular thing was Bernie was going around Burlington Square Mall interviewing people, and he was asking them their thoughts on stuff. He was just kind of asking them. I watched the video. He was asking, hey, what's your thought on what's going on in the world? What are your thoughts on what we need to do as a society? How are you feeling about the way Burlington's going? And some people praised him. They were like, hey, you're doing great. You're a wonderful leader. And he was kind of funny and humble about it. He was like, all right, just so you know, these are not paid placements. None of these people are being paid to say this. These are just people on the street. And he interviewed these two. Here, let's see the picture. These two. There you go. So we're not going to play the video because of copyright issues. But here's the two punk rockers. They're in high school. And here's the way they sum it up. So they reply, he asks them what they don't like about society. These are the punk rock kids. This is according to the article. They reply with a collection of complaints, some vague and some highly specific. Speaking as someone who in March of 1988 was 17 and listening to punk rock and sometimes hanging out at malls, this is as good as a condensation as you're likely to find. This is according to the article. So one of the punk rockers said, people are not open-minded enough. They think that in order to be stable in society, you have to have money, you have to live in a suburb, you have to do the set things such as have many people over for dinner. Okay. They both identified as anarchist, as 1980s mall punks were prone to do, says the article. But most people's politics are a mishmash, and that's true here. One of them said he'd be happy in a communist society with no freedom of enterprise as long as there's freedom of speech. The other says she's kind of an anarchist too, but doesn't believe in total anarchy because then we're just gonna kill ourselves, she said. So, yeah, it was pretty fun. And look, I also hung out in malls when I was in high school, and I listened to a bunch of punk rock. And if somebody would have asked me these questions, I would have been like, Tipper Gore's trying to censor us, man. That's fascist. I would have said something just not very deep. I mean, I watched the video, and I hope you watched the video too. These 1980s punk rock mall kids were more insightful than I would have been at that age. But, they just kind of said their take on the world, that it's closed-minded, that they wear black because they're frustrated with society and it doesn't matter, and they're not encouraged to think outside of the box or for themselves. Yeah, and they talk about how, they're fascinated by anarchy, and Bernie heard them out. And he listened to them, and he said, hey, thank you for your thoughts. He's like, what can we do to better society? And they kind of gave their thoughts on it all. And it was just sort of if we're focused on capital. But Bernie heard them out. He also recognized the fact that they were calling for anarchy to the mayor. He pointed that out. And I feel like that's a pretty cool mayor. I can't imagine my mayor doing anything like that. Of course, times have changed. If a mayor wanted to do that today, they could just walk around with their smartphone. They don't need to have... this was in the days of public access television, where you had to get a slot on public access TV, which I'm sure for the mayor that wasn't hard to do. I'm sure the mayor had you probably just went down to the office in the city hall building and just go, hey, I need a time slot. What can you do for me? And the person was like, Bernie, we got like 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. Is that cool? He's like, I'm the mayor. That's really, you can't give me drive time on a Friday afternoon. They're like, Bernie, I don't know. Like, that's the only thing that's available. Right now, drive time on a Friday afternoon. We have this dude named Wayne who does this show with this other guy, Garth. And it's picking up some steam. It's kind of popular. That's a Wayne's World reference that I'm sure most, if not all of you caught. But you're probably thinking, Ron, Wayne's World did not take place in Burlington, Vermont. They were supposed to be in Chicago. I know. These aren't perfect. What are you going to do? But, good for Bernie. I think that's pretty cool. You can watch all of his public access shows online. It's a pretty cool thing of the mayor to do. My mayor, where I live in Pasadena, California, has a grimace on his face whenever he has to sit in a local town hall meeting. So, maybe he's having a good time and he just kind of has kind of a natural, kind of frown. Some people have that, you just sort of have a natural frown. Whenever I'm looking intently, some people say I look sad. I'm not. I'm just, pondering or thinking or whatever. So, won't read too much into that. But I can't imagine a lot of mayors doing that. It's pretty cool that Bernie did. It'd be neat if mayors did that today. They just went around with their smartphones and asked people, hey, what's up? What should we be doing differently? I'm here. I'm doing a little vlog thing. This is going to go on my YouTube channel later. And it's called, Thoughts from the City. What do you guys need? What should we do? And just catalog all the answers you could get. These days, you'll get a lot of interesting answers. Although, I don't know. Where would you go? Would you go to a shopping mall? Not many people go to shopping malls as much anymore. The kind of shopping mall culture is not quite what it used to be. I feel like your best scenario would be you should just go to the heart of your city. Go to the main drag and just talk to the people who are out and about enjoying their day. Be like, hey, I'm the mayor. What should we do here? And see what they say. They might see how often you get recognized. How often do you think people would recognize their mayor in a given city? Do you think they'd recognize the mayor a lot? Do you think they'd recognize the mayor a little bit? I think in my city in Pasadena, I would imagine, if I had to take a guess, I bet 1 in 5 people would recognize the mayor. Because, a lot of people don't really follow local politics. That's just the reality of it. It should be the other way around. People follow presidential elections all the time. People follow midterms some, and people follow local politics almost not at all. Generally, it should be the other way around. You should follow local politics very intensely. You should be paying attention there. You should be voting there. You should be doing everything. Midterms, presidential, if you don't want to pay, I say pay attention to all of it, but if you're going to prioritize, the priority should be local, midterm, presidential, not presidential, midterm, local. We do it completely backwards. That's why I always say, I'm like, look, I'm 100% for voting. I just think we prioritize it backwards, and that helps discourage a lot of people. I think that if we most highly prioritize voting locally, that more people would be less discouraged. I do believe that. Also, if we had, honest and fair elections, that would probably help too. but you know what I mean. So there you go. That's circulating. Fun Music Monday story. Bernie was talking to the punk rockers back in the 80s. All right, here's another music story before we dismount from the Music Monday topic. Let's see here. We have been following the Chicago Symphony strike. We've been following that pretty intensely, and it's been interesting to watch unfold. A quick recap. The symphony musicians in Chicago went on strike because they were not being paid on a scale that other world symphonies were being paid. They're right on scale with New York or Boston. They were not getting compensated the same as those symphonies were getting compensated. Were they still compensated well? Yeah, they were getting paid pretty well, but they were getting screwed over compared to other symphonies. And this really matters because the Chicago Symphony is an end game for most musicians. It's not where you start. It's not like your first gigs in the Chicago Symphony. Usually, when you start out in an industry like that, you're working for smaller symphonies that do not pay that much, where you're struggling to get by. You might have to play in 2 or 3 symphonies to pay your bills, and you're just trying to make ends meet. You pay your dues, and then eventually, if you're good enough, presumably, you get into something like the Chicago Symphony. So when they screw people over that have made it to the top in a creative field, that's when trickle down works. That's when trickle down is an applied theory, when it comes to the trickle down of screwing people. Meaning, if you screw people in the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, you're going to screw people in the Fort Wayne Symphony Orchestra. Or, I'm just thinking of smaller markets. I'm sure if Fort Wayne has a symphony orchestra, it's fine. I'm just, So that's where trickle down actually applies when it comes to screwing over creative professionals, or any professionals, but especially creative professionals, from the top down. That's what happened in my world. In my world of stand-up comedy, the pay scale used to be at a certain level. Then they started messing with stuff a little bit, and now it has affected the pay scale from the top to the bottom. And now you used to be able to make a living as an MC in stand-up comedy. Now MC spots, which is the opening spot, those spots are seldomly even paid now. Sometimes they still are, but a lot of times they're not even paid. Used to be you could make a living in that spot. Not a great living. You had to work your way up quickly, but you can make a living. Now, and there's a number of reasons for that. It's not just, but it also has to do with the trickle down of screwing people over. That's a big factor. There were other factors. It got oversaturated. It became a different industry. At one point, there were more jobs for comedians than there were comedians to fill them. So those were all factors too. It's not like it was a one-factor issue, but the fact that they slowly started screwing the comics over and it trickled down, that's a factor. All right, so here's what happened. The strike ended. Christina shares this. Boom, here's what's going on. All right. Oh, sorry, I wasn't on the headline there. I apologize for that. Chicago Symphony ends its longest strike with a pension change. Okay, so what's going on here? The longest strike in the Chicago Symphony Orchestra's 128-year history ended Saturday, when the orchestra's musician and board agreed to a new contract that will shift the players from their defined pension to a defined contribution plan similar to a 401k. All right? The proposed change to that pension plan was the major sticking point in a musician strike that lasted nearly 7 weeks. All right, so Rahm Emanuel helped this deal. So here was the issue. The orchestra's management had said that the existing pension plan, which guaranteed the players a set amount in retirement, had grown too costly. The players countered that the proposed alternative, in which the orchestra would put a set amount of money into individual retirement accounts, would shift investment risk to the musicians. Okay? So the two sides came up with a compromise. The orchestra's management said that when current players switch to the newly defined contribution plan and agree to invest their retirement accounts prudently, the orchestra will guarantee that their benefits at retirement will be the same as what they would have earned under the old pension plan, which is being frozen. So basically, they're guaranteeing, hey, the amount you see in retirement, we're not going to mess with. We're going to go to these accounts. It's going to be more similar to a 401k plan, like a matching plan or something similar like that. But you're not going to see less when you retire. And the players were like, okay, we can take that. All right. So now here's a little bit of a concern. The guarantee will not be available to new players. Those hired after July 1st, 2020 will immediately move into the new plan, in which 7.5% of their base salary will be placed into retirement accounts. Now, the other major issue was wages. The new contract will include raises in each of the 5 years of the contract. 2.5, 3.5, 3.5%, which will bring the base salary to $181,272 in the final year. Okay. So, it sounds like it's a deal that the musicians are happy with, which is good. The little bit of concern is the fact that, players that are already in the system, they're going to be protected when it comes to retirement. But new players, they're just kind of going to be part of this new system, which hopefully the new system is still fair and still gives players a nice retirement. We're not exactly sure how it's going to look when it's unrolled yet because it's new. But it kind of looks like they're like, all right, new players, they're just in the new system, but we want to make sure we're covered. So, that's a bit concerning, but it looks like they, their big thing was they wanted their wages to be on par with other same-tier symphonies. And they got that. It looks like they got that. Their wages have been raised, so it looks like they're now on par with the other symphonies. And hopefully this new method of doing the retirement, going from a pension to a more 401k style retirement fund, still benefits the players. All right. So there you go. The Chicago strike is over. And the people won. So looking at this broader, what does this mean? Well, this means that there's power in strikes. There's power in unity. And strikes are contagious. You haven't heard about this strike much. One, because I understand it's a very niche thing. I understand that. It's a very niche thing. I get that. But they don't talk about strikes much. They don't talk about the teacher strikes much when they're going on. When I say they, I mean the corporate media. Why? Because they know how contagious strikes are. Strikes are contagious. They're more contagious than the common cold, but they're way cooler. And that should be their slogan. Strikes, as contagious as the common cold, but way freaking cooler. This is the type of thing you want to catch. You want to catch a strike, baby? We're going to stand up for what we deserve. We want our wages. We want our pensions. We want to be treated right. We want fair retirement plans. Boom. All right. Oh, so this is a fun thing. We'll go here pretty quick. Game of Thrones fans, I know you're out there. We can talk about... Actually, you know what? We'll end with this. Because we'll see who are and aren't the Game of Thrones fans. We'll end with a little fun thing that you probably saw in the blogosphere today. All right, so I mentioned that today's song of the day was Radio Radio by Elvis Costello. Why was that our song of the day? Because we have a story about media homogenization and media consolidation. So we go to Free Press now. Free Press slams the Trump FCC for turning its back on broadcast diversity. So this is a little older, so this was a little while back, but Free Press condemned the Federal Communications Commission for failing to prioritize broadcast diversity in the agency's review proceeding on media ownership. The Trump FCC is considering changes to or the elimination of 3 primary rules: the local radio ownership rule, the local television ownership rule, and the dual network rule. Each was put in place to help fulfill the agency's central mandate, promoting localism, diversity, and competition over the public airways. Now, keep in mind, we already have a completely gutted policy when it comes to how many stations one entity can own. So the rules that they're looking to roll back are already very soft rules to begin with. They're already like the bare minimum to try to promote media diversity. And this can be traced back to 1996. In 1996, we had the Telecommunications Act of 1996, where the Clinton administration pretty much lifted all the regulations of how many radio stations and television stations one company could own. Before the Telecommunications Act of 1996, an entity could only own 2 FM and 2 AM stations in a given market. They could only own 40 stations nationwide out of anything. Those rules were all lifted and gutted with the Telecommunications Act of 1996. So now these newer rules to promote ownership in the local market, they're all just pretty small rules to begin with, and just the bare minimum to assure any kind of media diversity. One of the things that the Telecommunications Act of 1996 did was it spawned a new movement called the low power FM movement. Now, what this was people getting new radio stations and frequencies to have community radio stations. Now, what the FCC did, and basically what Clear Channel and the big cable companies did, the big companies that ran all the radio and television, they wanted rules regarding how far out of a city these stations had to be, so they wouldn't reach many people and they wouldn't be a competitor with the big stations. So low power FM is a smaller FM frequency. It's a lower frequency. And most LPFM stations are located outside of city limits, pretty much all of them, because they have to be. You know, like when I was part of an LPFM station in the Nashville, Tennessee area, the station was like 30 miles outside of Nashville. Maybe not quite that many, but it was significantly outside the city. So it was basically throwing scraps to the idea of broadcast diversity. It was saying, "Oh no, look, we let all these entities have their radio stations. But they're these small stations way outside of city limits that does not have a very big listener reach, and you design it so it has to be that way." So what I'm saying is that these rules are already the bare minimum, and the Trump FCC wants to roll that back. All right, so here's what's going on. In 2017, the FCC determined women own just 7% of FM radio stations. People of color own less than 3%. Numbers for television stations barely better. So the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit has told the FCC in 3 previous rounds of litigation that before proceeding with rule changes, the agency must first consider the impact those changes would have on diversity across the industry, something it has thus far failed to do. So basically, the FCC wants to roll back these 3 primary rules: the local radio ownership rule, the local television ownership rule, the dual network rule. And as far as what will this do to a community, what will this do to affect diversity in broadcast ownership? Well, obviously it will hurt that, but the FCC didn't do any of those reviews. The court was like, "Hey, FCC, you have to do this review." And the FCC was like, "Sure, we'll do it." We'll do it. And then they didn't do it. Because obviously, when you already have a completely consolidated media where just scraps are thrown to any type of diversity and ownership, any policy that would further roll back what little rules we still have, what few rules we still have left, and you're going to roll that back, obviously that's going to crush what little diversity in media on the airwaves we still have. So clearly the FCC didn't do any type of review to make sure this assures diversity in broadcast, because if they did, they would realize that they shouldn't be rolling this shit back, but they want to roll it back, because who does AG Pie report to? Big cable. They want to make sure there's no diversity on the radio waves or the television waves. And we don't have that. And if we lose the free and open internet, the one thing that's a competitor for the marketplace of ideas, where different viewpoints can be heard on a regular basis, you guys all know that. That's why you're here. If we lose the free and open internet, we're done, because there's no diversity on the radio. You get a fringe right-wing viewpoint or a center right-wing viewpoint. NPR, the supposed progressive option on the dial, gets money from the Koch brothers, gets money from big oil. I heard a story on net neutrality once on NPR. They had a cable lobbyist and a cable lobbyist talk about the issue. I'm not shitting you. That was their diversity in viewpoints. A cable lobbyist and a cable lobbyist. So that's why if we lose the free and open internet, we're completely screwed because they already got radio and TV from us. They already took that from us. We have, at best, scraps. So this bleeds into the next story, which is a net neutrality story. And this is something that Fight for the Future did. You know, last story we gave Free Press a shout out. This comes to us with the help of Fight for the Future. Both are amazing organizations doing a lot for the free and open internet and a lot for net neutrality and a lot for just trying to get a better media pulse in this country. Which, you know what I say? I used to say our media structure in the United States is toxic. Now I say we don't have a media structure and that's toxic. But it'd be cool if we had one. It'd be cool if we had protections on the ownership of media and transparent rules for the benefit of consumers and actual protections for journalists. You know who has all those things? Norway. You know who has the #1 rated media structure in the world when it comes to press freedom? Norway. You know who just went down 2 spots, so they're barely in the top 50? The United States. We were number 46, baby. Now we're 48. Why did we go down a few spots? Gee, I don't know. Google Julian Assange. Google Chelsea Manning. That might be a clue. Oh, and also what little rules we have protecting diversity in media. The FCC is trying to roll that back. All right, but this net neutrality story, here we go. This is something cool that Fight for the Future did. Net neutrality activists debut Phoenix billboard calling cinema corrupt. So, Kristen Sinema is one of the only Democrats, maybe the only Democrats, to not get on board with the Save the Internet Act. What is the Save the Internet Act? The Save the Internet Act is the act that restores net neutrality protections. We lost net neutrality protections in 2017. We had them since the advent of the Internet. We had assumed net neutrality since the advent of the Internet. What we didn't have was something solid on the books. Digital rights activists for years called for solid net neutrality protections on the books. One day, big cable, Verizon, they took the FCC to court saying that they couldn't enforce net neutrality. The court rules in Verizon's favor, but they told the FCC, hey, if you designate the internet a Title II designation, meaning it has to be treated as a utility because it's so essential to people's lives, you have to treat it like flowing water or a telephone service, then you can have net neutrality on the books. And everyone has to abide by net neutrality. Tom Wheeler didn't want to do that because he was a cable lobbyist, but the people yelled. And they yelled so loud they crashed the FCC's website. They were digitally yelling. So the FCC did the right thing, and they designated the internet as Title II. We got net neutrality protections on the books. When Ajit Pai took over the FCC, he repealed all that. The Save the Internet Act of 2019 basically says we're reinstating what we got on the books in 2015, designated the internet as a Title II, and all this stuff that you repealed, no, you didn't repeal it. We're going back to the way it was because we got it right. That's basically what the bill does. It is 3 pages long. Kristen Sinema did not support that bill, and she's a Democrat. All right. So, an activist-sponsored billboard slamming Kristen Sinema appeared Wednesday off Interstate 17 in Phoenix. The digital billboard on the south side of the freeway was crowdfunded in March by net neutrality activist group Fight for the Future. Its message, Sinema is corrupt. She's siding with corporate donors to kill net neutrality so you pay more for worse internet. The crowdfunding campaign started after Sinema became one of the few Democrats in Congress who didn't sign the Save the Internet Act, a net neutrality bill intended to reverse the FCC's 2017 decision to allow providers to customize internet access services. Instead, she joined an otherwise Republican working group to draft legislation that would encourage internet providers to treat traffic to all websites equally. Okay, what is that article referring to? So it's very diplomatically referring to the Republicans' counteroffers to net neutrality, which were fake net neutrality bills. Why were they fake net neutrality bills? They basically said, hey, internet service providers, please do the right thing and don't test the limits of net neutrality, which, by the way, internet service providers already are. Look at what Verizon did to the firefighters in California, AT&T. They're already trying to violate net neutrality because they don't have to follow it anymore. Net neutrality assures a free and open internet. Without net neutrality, different content providers can get paid prioritization. different consumers can get certain access to certain sites and can get custom internet packages that doesn't include certain internet services they rely on. You get the drill. So the fake Republican bills that Kristen Sinema is okay with are bills that are fake net neutrality bills. Why? Because they don't designate the internet as Title II, which means the internet service providers can do whatever they want. And you're just asking them to do the right thing, which guess what? They're not going to do. You think Comcast is going to do the right thing? Comcast, the most hated company in the country. The company that gets third-party organizations to run their customer service because they don't give a shit about their customers, but they save money doing it that way. So you have to go through multiple webs to get basic customer service help at Comcast, and it's set up that way because they don't actually want to help you, but it saves them money. Even the installation is done by a third-party contractor, so they don't give a shit. But they'll do the right thing. We can trust Kristen Sinema and these Republican bills. They'll do the right thing. All right. Evan Greer, who's awesome. You should check her out, and you should get her album. Her new album's out now. It's called She, Her, They, Them. And it's a really good album. And we interviewed her here on this show. Evan Greer, Deputy Director of Fight for the Future, accused Sinema of only caring about the interests of telecom lobbyists, saying it's the only way to oppose her opposition to a bill all other Democrats support. Yep. And so here's a look at that billboard. Sinema is corrupt. She's siding with corporate donors to kill net neutrality so you pay more for worse internet. Cinemaiscorrupt.com. Good job, Fight for the Future. Thank you guys for doing that. That's awesome. All right. So now we're going over to a little bit of election news. Joe Biden kicking off on the campaign trail. If you saw any of the footage from his events, it looks like people vaguely give a shit. Their enthusiasm level was somewhere in between Beto and Hillary, I feel like. But anyway, and he certainly wasn't getting the crowds Bernie's getting, just saying. So here's something. Joe Biden says he doesn't have time to lay out his healthcare plan. He doesn't have time. Joe Biden doesn't have time. We have, by the way, in the United States, we have the longest election season out of pretty much any other democratic experiment. Other countries laugh at us. When they see how long our election seasons are, they laugh at us. In a lot of other countries, election seasons are 6 weeks long or shorter. They're all publicly funded. They all debate around issues. People vote. Boom. It's over. Here, we have a horse race forever. I mean, really, election seasons never really end in this country. Between midterms and presidential, we're always going. We're always going. And as Charles Bukowski says, during an election season, both sides are trying to convince you why they shouldn't be in office, and that's one of the few times they're both telling you the truth. Here's why my opposition shouldn't be in office. Yeah, that's true. You're right. They shouldn't be. Here's why my opposition shouldn't be in office. Yeah, you're right. They shouldn't be. Neither of you should be. Interesting. All right. So, Joe Biden, though, he doesn't have time. Longest election season, Joe Biden somehow doesn't have to. He doesn't have time to give you his healthcare plan. My healthcare plan is a single-payer plan where everybody pays into the system, and then the government does the bookkeeping, and you go to the doctor when you need to. You don't have to pay anything out of pocket. You get procedures that you need to get, and you pay very little, if anything, for prescription drugs. How much time did that take? Joe Biden didn't have that kind of time. Single payer. All he had to do was just say that, and then people could just Google it. Hey, what's your healthcare plan? Single payer. Medicare for all. How much time did that take? Someone time me. Medicare for all. How long was that? Was that like 1.5 seconds? Joe Biden, though, because that's not his plan, he didn't have time to lay out his healthcare plan. If somebody doesn't have time to lay out their plan, guess what? It's probably because their plan's bullshit, and it sucks, and it's a giveaway to the insurance industry. So here's what Joe says. As Joe Biden storms through Iowa and prepares for his first visit as a presidential candidate in South Carolina, the Democratic frontrunner has said he doesn't have the time to lay out the details of his healthcare plan. I don't have time. I don't want to keep you standing any longer, Mr. Biden said recently in Iowa City, declining to lay out his vision for America's healthcare future to the assembled crowd. Likewise, Mr. Biden has been less than exhaustive when it comes to his other plans, be it foreign policy or how to tackle climate change, because he has no plans for any of those things. The approach, one in which the former vice president is focused on the values needed in an American president instead of policy, stands in contrast. Okay. Well, it doesn't stand in contrast to Pete Buttigieg. They do the same thing. That's amazing. It's a political event where people came out to see you because they want to know who you are. Why should they vote for you? And you tell them you don't have time. They ask you a policy question. You don't have time to lay that out. What the flaming fuck? This is politics. How can anyone take this system seriously? I mean, obviously, if you're watching this right now, you don't, and you shouldn't. You're like, this system is so fucked up, I want to get my news with a comedian on YouTube while we just gather the news together because it makes me feel a little bit better about how ridiculous and laughably corrupt the system is. It makes me feel a little bit better at getting my news in a community like this, which that's the point of this show. That's the point of this show. Who can take this system seriously? It's like, I mean, people taking our electoral system, at least at the federal and national level, seriously, is the equivalent of sports commentators seriously commentating on the Harlem Globetrotters and the Washington Generals. It is on par with that. An elected official who is running for the highest office in the land, President of the United States, has a gathering. Now, keep in mind, a lot of people aren't paying attention to the election yet because our election cycle never ends. So a lot of people aren't paying attention quite yet. So the people that are showing up at events already, they're the hyper-involved people. They're the people that are really paying attention, that really follow politics intensely. And I'm not shaming people who don't. People are working 2 and 3 jobs to survive. People need to look out for their own mental health in a lot of cases. They don't follow this stuff all the time. I get it. But my point is, the people who are showing up already are the people who follow this stuff intensely. They ask you a policy question, you tell them you don't have time. This is why we have something as repulsive as the Republican Party. The only reason something as repulsive as the Republican Party can even exist is because when you have one opposition, and it's an opposition that is inherently beyond weak and set up to be that way, you can have this utterly corrupt, morally repulsive party who's able to kind of use its messaging to trick people and to dupe people. And again, you know, when you have bipartisan action, that's code for the Republicans to have an awful idea, the Democrats are going to help them out. Because you have people like Joe Biden, that's why something like the Republicans can even exist. Because that's their opposition. Joe Biden. I don't have time. I don't have time. So you see why when the Republicans sell all these ideas that they're the party for tradition, they're the party for morals, they're the party for the working folk because they're not going to tax you. And these are all lies. These are all misdirections. But you see how when the opposition goes, I don't have time to tell you what I'm about, a voter might go, gee, I'm going to take the chance that these folks are telling me the truth. That these Republicans are about what they say they're about. They're not. They're about the rich. That's what they're about. That's it. They're not about you. They don't give a shit about you. But you see how a general voter might be like, well, maybe they're telling me the truth. I might as well take a chance because this person's offering me nothing. You have to offer people something. If you're offering them a lie or nothing, they're going to take the chance on the lie. And that's why we are where we are. That's why Donald Trump is president. So good job, Joe. He doesn't have time. He can't tell you about his healthcare plan. He doesn't have time. All right. One last thing, then I'll go to you guys. And again, we got to end a little earlier today. Game of Thrones, for those of you that are fans, Starbucks Cup is trending on Twitter right now. Why is Starbucks Cup trending? Boom, because that happened. That happened. That is a scene from last night's Game of Thrones. There's a Starbucks Cup. There is a Starbucks cup. We won't read any of the spoilers. Starbucks cup. And everyone's going nuts about it. And it was there. You know what I say? I think what happened is one of the characters in Game of Thrones is able to time travel. I won't say any more than that. But I think that person just time traveled into the future and gave Dany, he was like, hey, pumpkin spice, you might dig it. Let me know what you think. And she's like, all right, I'll let you know what I think. I think he was just trying to give her a gift. He went into the future. He saw this advertisement for Starbucks. It compelled him. So he got it for her. And it may play a role later. I think maybe she's going to introduce all the people to these Starbucks concoctions, and they'll be like, this is brilliant. And then they'll be like, you need to be queen. So there you go. That happened. So let me go to you guys, see what you guys are saying. Thank you very much for the super chat contributions. Over the Road Trucker says, Mo sees $10 on the ground. He slaps Curly's head and points at Larry. While they fight, he picks up the $10 bill. Does the U.S. practice Three Stoogeonomics? Let's see. Yeah, absolutely they do. That's a very good analogy. They point at the working class, and then they take the money. Absolutely. Baringo PR, thank you for the super chat contribution. Ron, how about starting a separate internet? Russia and China has satellites. We don't need the U.S. satellites. I have no idea how one would go about orchestrating something like that. That seems like a pretty heavy order. Let's start a different internet. That's above my abilities. If it's not above yours, hey, have at it. Jennifer says, that's in the book. George R.R. Martin wrote in it. Tim says, we got an order for Khaleesi. Half soy decaf macchiato with caramel. Chris, love your indie show, Ron. I'll send you info on IPX Mesh Network soon. Thank you very much, Chris. And it was awesome meeting you in Indianapolis. Chris was at the indie show. We got to meet, which was really, really cool. Which, by the way, that's a nice transition. Tour dates, I got them. I want to meet more of you. Graham Elwood and I are coming to the East Coast in June. Get your tickets now. We're coming to Washington, D.C. We're coming to Baltimore, Philadelphia for 2 nights, New Haven, Connecticut, New York City, and Boston. That is the East Coast tour. All dates are final. We will not be adding any more dates on the East Coast at this time. Get your tickets now, ronplacone.com. July 27th, we're coming back to Las Vegas, Nevada, baby. Get your tickets for Vegas. That's July 27th. Tickets available at ronplacone.com. I got some local LA stuff. The next Politics Night at the Dojo is May 8th, which I believe is Wednesday. Yes, it's Wednesday. Wednesday night, May 8th, is the next Politics Night at the Dojo. Go to ronplacone.com and email me if you want to get on the guest list for that show. And May 23rd is the first Ron Placone and Friends at Flappers Comedy Club in Burbank. Ron Placone and Friends is happening on May 23rd. Who's on the first show, you ask? Jimmy Dore is on that show. Graham Elwood's on that show. Steph Semirano's on that show. Gareth Reynolds from The Dollop is on that show. Tracy Walker is on that show. Yeah, that's a really... And Courtney Cronin, writer for BT, she is on that show as well. That's going to be a really fun show. Go to ronplacone.com for all those details. And, yeah, you know the drill. You know the drill. If you want to support this show on the sustainability end, please do consider becoming a Patreon for a Patreon. A patron on Patreon. A patron on Patreon. Say that 5 times fast. For a Give What You Can level, you get all kinds of exclusive content, and you help me expand this show. I want to do more streams. I want to do longer streams. I want to have more guests. I want to have more interviews. So, you know, if you're able to, please do consider it. Patreon.com/Ron Placone. You get all kinds of cool content. And it's at a Give What You Can level. If you don't have an extra $1 a month, totally understand. I've been there too. Like and share these videos. Let them play through. Do the thing. And don't just do that for me. Do that for all the content creators you love on YouTube, because that's how our channels are sustainable. Like those ads all the way through. Or excuse me, like the videos. Watch the ad. Put them on autoplay so they just play all the way through. Do that for me and do that for all the content creators you love. Please. It helps sustain our channels. All right. You guys are phenomenal. Let's see. Did you see Bernie calling for universal broadband in the Iowa rally? I heard about this, and we need to cover it. Apparently, at a rally in Iowa, Bernie was calling for universal broadband, which would be, I mean, I'm assuming that would just be municipal broadband all across the country. This is something I really need to look into. So, yeah. Jennifer, I am the same as you. Jennifer says, Bran is my least favorite character in Game of Thrones. Bran is also my least favorite character. Yeah. I, too, am not a Bran fan. I find him annoying. Yeah. Chips asked a really good question. Did Howard Schultz drop out yet? I'm actually not sure. I feel like he might have. We haven't heard anything from him recently. So I feel like he might have, but I haven't heard anything. Garden Gnome, thank you very much for the Super Chat contribution. I appreciate that very much. Thank you very, very much. You guys are awesome. We got to end early today because I have a quick studio time here coming up. This has been Get Your News On With Ron. Happy Music Monday. Again, my song of the day, Elvis Costello, Radio. Please check it out. This has been the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What does that mean? That means you guys tweet me articles, you send me ideas, and that's how we build the show. All the articles we went through today, I'm seeing everything for the first time. I'm getting my news. You guys are getting our news. We're getting our news together, and that makes it a lot more fun, and it makes it a lot more not as difficult to swallow, if you will. It makes it more easily digestible. We make the news more easily digestible. Isn't that great? Right? Consider the news gotten. That doesn't even make sense. Peace. See you tomorrow. Same time, same channel, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time, right here on YouTube.